According to a recent Federal Reserve survey, the average retirement savings for someone aged 55 to 64 in the US is about $185,000. If you found this video, it's probably because you're hoping to achieve more than that, and maybe you want to achieve it a little bit sooner. Did you know that there's an entire movement around this concept? It's called the FIRE movement. Financial Independence, Retire Early. Now, FIRE isn't just about retiring in your 30s or 40s and never working again. The real concept behind the FIRE movement is buying back control of your time and doing it as soon as possible so you have more time to enjoy in your life. Today, I want to explain what the FIRE movement really is, go over some basic math behind financial independence, and walk through some different levels of financial independence that you can aim to achieve. So what is the FIRE movement? The FIRE movement gained popularity in the early 2010s thanks to books like Your Money or Your Life, blogs like Mr. Money Mustache, and many other resources that are still out there that you can go and look into after this video. Most of us learned a more traditional method of retirement as we were growing up. Get a good job, put away a little bit in your 401k from every paycheck, save slowly over time so that hopefully when you reach age 65, you can retire between what's in your 401k and some Social Security income. But as recently as 2025, about 57% of Americans reported living paycheck to paycheck. That means they're not saving any money for retirement. They need all of what's coming in that next paycheck to cover their expenses. The FIRE model flips all of this on its head. People aim to save aggressively, 30 to 70% of their income. I know it sounds crazy, but bear with me. They invest aggressively, they build investment income, and the goal is to reach financial independence in their 30s, 40s, or 50s instead of at age 65 or later. It does take some sacrifice up front, but people who believe in the FIRE movement live like no one does now so that they can live like no one can later. And the goal isn't necessarily to stop working altogether. It might just be that you make work optional, or you go to a job that's part-time, or pays less but it's more aligned with your passions. There are many ways to use the FIRE movement, and you can scale it to what fits your life and your goals. So let's talk about the basic math of financial independence. Because the real goal of the FIRE movement is to make sure that your investment income meets or exceeds your living expenses so that you don't have to work. Now stick around, because after we talk about the simple math, we're going to go into different levels of FIRE that you can aim for. In order to make sure your investments generate enough income to cover all of your living expenses, you just need to use the 4% rule. This rule comes from research called the Trinity Study, which suggests that historically you could withdraw 4% of your investments and not run out of money over the course of a 30-year retirement. Of course, if we're retiring early, we might have a little bit more time in retirement, but as I said, we're going to go through different levels and styles of FIRE right after this. So the formula for understanding what you need to retire early is this. Your financial independence number equals your annual expenses times 25. For example, if your ideal lifestyle costs you $60,000 per year, you would need $60,000 times 25, or $1.5 million, to retire early. So if you take $1.5 million times 4%, that shows you that you could withdraw 4% per year and have $60,000. So let's talk about how real estate can play into the financial independence retire early movement. If we're talking about FIRE from the very traditional sense, a lot of times they're talking about putting money in the stock market. And as we said in our previous example, it would take $1.5 million in the stock market to achieve $60,000 in living expenses per year. Instead of needing $1.5 million in the stock market, you could buy rental properties until you get to $5,000 per month of cash flow. Assuming that you get $250 per door in cash flow after everything is paid on your rental properties, that's only 20 doors that you'd need to reach financial independence. And thanks to things like leverage, being able to get mortgages on these properties that you purchase, you might need a lot less in cash invested to get to that number every month. Instead of $1.5 million in the stock market, maybe you need $400,000 or $500,000 invested in real estate. This is why real estate is so powerful. You can use leverage to buy an asset that gives you cash flow that also appreciates over time, and it has tax benefits such as depreciation every year. So real estate really fits well into the financial independence retire early movement. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I talk about financial independence and personal finance in general, but I do a lot of videos about real estate because this is my method of choice for building wealth and financial independence in my life. All right, let's talk about levels of financial independence. One of the things I love about how the FIRE movement has evolved over time is that we've recognized there are a lot of different levels and methods for getting there. Not everyone needs to or even wants to retire in their 30s, but almost everybody would benefit from more freedom and flexibility in their lives. So let's talk through 4 common levels of financial independence that we hear about in the FIRE community. Level 1, Coast Fire. I think this is one of the most interesting concepts because when you reach Coast Fire, you reach a point of having many options ahead of you. Coast Fire means that you've saved enough that your investment will grow on its own over time to support your retirement, even if you don't contribute anything else. So let's say your first 10 to 15 years in the workforce, you saved aggressively, you reinvested all the dividends, and now it's grown to $400,000 or $500,000. You can reasonably expect that that money might grow to $2 million or more by the time you reach retirement age. So you don't have to contribute additional money anymore. You can coast. This might just be something that lifts a weight off your shoulders. Or maybe it just means you can go to a different job that aligns better with your passions, even though it pays a little bit less because you no longer have to worry about setting aside money for retirement. Once you reach the point of Coast Fire, you have more options in your life. For instance, when I reached the point of Coast Fire was when I chose to leave my 9-to-5 job to focus exclusively on real estate investing and other endeavors that I would do on my own. I left the traditional 9-to-5 and I haven't been back since 2019. Level 2 is called Barista Fire. And what this means is that you've saved enough in your investments that today, now, you can cover most of your living expenses from your investments. But maybe there's still a little bit of a gap that you could use an easy, low-stress, part-time job to cover. For instance, you might have enough in your investments to cover $40,000 of living expenses per year. So you get an easy part-time job that covers the remaining 20, your stress is lower, your time spent at work is less, and you're having a little bit more fun, a little more freedom and flexibility in your life. That is Barista Fire, and they call it that because it might just be a simple coffee shop job. Level 3 is Lean Fire. Lean Fire means reaching full financial independence, but on a very modest budget. So instead of $60,000 or more in living expenses per year, maybe you find a way to cut your expenses down to only $40,000 per year. This approach requires a smaller investment, but also a much more frugal living style. Some people love this. They love to cut out the excess, get rid of the subscriptions, live really simply, and not have to worry. Others feel it's a little bit too restrictive. I tend to fall in that camp. So let's talk about the last level of financial freedom. Level 4 is Fat Fire. This is financial independence with a very comfortable lifestyle. Many people are achieving $80,000, $90,000, or $100,000 plus in annual living expenses from their investment portfolio. But this means you need a pretty big investment portfolio, probably $2.5 to $5 million if you're looking at the stock market, but maybe a lot less if you're using real estate and leverage to get you there. This option might take a little more time or become a little bit more complex, but it means you don't have to worry about budgets and you're living in a place of abundance after you reach financial independence. So as you can see, the financial independence retire early movement has a lot of different options beneath it. There are a lot of ways to set up FIRE in your own life. Personally, I think it's a lot less about retiring and sitting on the beach all day and a lot more about having options, having freedom from the 9-to-5, having flexibility in your life, being able to choose how you spend your time, go where you want, when you want. And this, I think, is what more people need. Personally, I fall somewhere between Lean Fire and Fat Fire currently, working to a solidly Fat Fire in the future. If you're interested in this concept of financial independence or in real estate investing or any of the things we touched on in this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Please leave any questions you have in the comments below. I do my best to answer all of them, and sometimes I elaborate in future videos. Most importantly, keep learning, keep growing, and have fun.